I had to do is produce it, put it on.
Did you take a look at it?
Yeah, it looked fine. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because you know,
Yeah, no, it looked fine.
that's all right.
Anyway,
The meeting will start in 10 minutes. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
well, more room the better.
Seeing ya.
Fine with me.
Sorry I can't stay.
Just trying to make a little bit of room.
I already signed up for the webinar. It was real hard. You click, you put your name in, and you're in. Hello.
Keep from blinding people. Good idea.
Just a minute. I need to respond.
I wrote a letter to him and I showed it to Matt. Matt suggested that I run it by the attorney's office, so it's actually in the attorney's office.
It's in the works.
Pardon me?
It's in the
works, yeah.
Done. I just didn't want us to drop the ball.
Right.
But
Yeah, I was gonna follow up with Emily today on that.
I didn't think I didn't want to bring it up. Especially
Right.
I thought I'd just ask you.
Hey,
Amazon secured.
Is that all?
just so you know, our recording is going right now.
You are being recorded. Oh, good job, Beck. I dropped my file.
Put that, should that easel be on the other side of the podium, or is that a good spot there?
Well,
move that.
John can see it. There it is. Sit in John's seat, so you can think you could.
We usually put the easel on this side.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, because you couldn't see it for sure. You always got emails, so I sent whatever email.
I got several.
Tried to read most of them. Not too bad. I was catching up over the weekend, reviewing stuff.
No, there was, I meant to give it to more.
Want a cart?
How you doing?
Good.
See my email.
Yeah, I just responded. Down on the process that they, I told them, I emailed you in the morning, so you can find reference. You're talking to. Just have to. No.
Still know you're talking?
No. Once I
Okay.
emailed out 3 letters on the reviews that I did.
Okay. I think so. Just-
I mailed them right away.
It's taking, usually it takes like
Okay, wish to call the meeting to order. We stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flags of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. John Kopis. Larry Korzaneski. Here. Joseph Keefe.
Here.
Rebecca Anderson.
Here.
Anthony Gorski.
Here.
Stanley Kiza.
Here.
Chair Conley is present. Welcome, everybody. This is a meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Lancaster. Remember, we are an advisory body and not a final decision-making board. We ask those wishing to make comment to do so in writing, send to me or to the town clerk's office. We have some administrative items. We have a busy meeting, so we'll move along, but we won't hurry. We first need to accept the minutes from the February 2nd meeting, because we didn't do that last meeting, since we didn't all have copies. Have we had a chance to look at the minutes from the February 2nd meeting?
I don't remember getting them.
We were supposed to get at least an email. All right, we might have to let that hang for a while then again, until the next meeting.
I need a paper copy. I don't have a paper
All right. Let's let that alone until next meeting. How about the minutes from the last meeting, February 16th? By the way, for those of you that don't know, we do not have a secretary at this time, and that's hence the difficulties. Hopefully that will be remedied pretty soon. Can we address the minutes from the February 16th meeting then? I think we all got that. Sure. Any additions, deletions, or comments? Nope. Cindy Machaski did help me out with those minutes. So I'm thankful to her for that. Can I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Gotta write that down. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Communications list. Any issues with the communications list? Okay, good. The attorney's office informed me that the public hearing for the Cross Creek subdivision needed to be changed to April 6th. So at this time, I want to move that we have a public hearing for the Cross Creek Phase 9 subdivision on April 6th at 7:05 p.m. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. All right, training. We did get information about a webinar to be held on March 16th, so the same day as our next meeting. I think it's at 11 o'clock on agricultural ag districts. Thank you. So if you're interested in that and have the time, you should have gotten information on that. If you need any more information, let me know or let the clerk's office know. All right. If there's nothing else, then we can move on to our agenda items. We have site plan review for the new retail store at 5807 Broadway. Tara, could you come up, please, Tara? All right, just identify yourself and, well, I guess we know you're Tara Matthias.
Tara Matthias. I'm with the Broadway Group, and we're the developer for the proposed retail store.
Okay. Could you give us a rundown what you're...
Absolutely. I'll be glad to. So we have a lot. It's about 1.2, 1.3 acres of land on Broadway. And right now the property is not being utilized. It has been utilized in the past for some different uses, but right now it's kind of a lot that's fallen into disrepair and really isn't being utilized as well as it could for the town. And so we have an opportunity to come in and redevelop the site as a general variety retail store. The retail store itself would be 10,600 40 square feet. And along with the store, which would bring really just some convenience shopping experience for essential everyday household goods, would bring 8 to 10 jobs to the community, and of course help increase your property taxes, as well as help allocate more sales taxes to the town as well. Our plan would basically be to have the retail store plus the associated parking, which would be 35 stalls. That particular detail would basically require a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is fewer parking stalls than would typically be required for this zone and for the use. We have also some exterior lighting, which we've provided some details on. We would be managing all of our stormwater through some underground pipes and a detention pond. We also are proposing some screening of the adjacent properties, particularly some of the residential uses that are near us, through privacy fencing, as well as some vegetation with some evergreen trees. So we really would just love to be able to beautify the site, number one, and number two, bring it to a higher use for the town. And we're dealing with DOT, by the way, in terms of the access, because we are in the access management overlay. And so we are coordinating with them on the access. They've given us some preliminary feedback on the driveway, and so far have not given me any cause to believe there would be an issue with that. We are closing several of the curb cuts that are on this particular property, which is an added benefit as well. So I welcome any questions or comments about it. I'll be glad to go into any details that you might be curious about this evening.
I guess what I was thinking about the buffer behind the store there. You kind of alluded to it, but what are you kind of proposing there?
So let me talk more specifically about that. There's a residential neighborhood behind the property, and so what we would propose to do is install a 6-foot board-on-board wooden privacy fence. In addition to that, there is some existing trees in the area, and we're proposing to keep 5 of those is what we identified that we could keep without disturbing, and they're more mature trees. And then we would come in and supplement that with, I believe it's 12 or 13 evergreen trees is what we would plant in addition back there.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay.
This is a Dollar General, right?
Yes, ma'am, it would be.
Okay, I have nothing against Dollar General by itself, but are you planning on building the building to look like the plans that you submitted in your package? The
Yes.
plain Jane version?
Yes, ma'am, that is our plan, is to build the prototypical store that I
Well, may I
submitted.
ask why we can't have as nice of one as the one on Southwestern at Angle? You can do better. And when I tried to get Walmart to not look like the Walmart that we have, I wanted them to design it like this building or something else. The board at that time was not these gentlemen, and they didn't back me up. It was a whole different board. But now, if you guys get a chance to go down Southwestern, you turn the big corner, and just before you get the light at Angle, there's a new Dollar General. It's in West Seneca, I think. Could be Orchard Park there, depends on
Right
the
on the
light.
border there.
And it doesn't look like the one they gave us. It's much nicer looking. So I would very much appreciate it if you would come back, because you'll be back. There's always another comeback. With a set of plans that look a lot better than the ones you sent us. I'd like to see a building, if you can do it in West Seneca and Orchard Park, you can certainly do it here.
Well, let's, and I appreciate that comment, I do, and it's one that I would expect to receive, quite honestly. But let's talk a little bit about why the proposal is what it is. And that's because each town or village municipality, you have zoning ordinances, and those ordinances help developers like us know what is going to be required for your site to be approved. And so based off of those zoning ordinances, we come up with a plan, including a budget. And so the budget for this particular store did not include any of those facade enhancements because it wasn't detailed as a requirement in your zoning ordinance. So I'm more than happy to go back to my management and ask them if we can do some sort of upgrade. The significance of the upgrade, though, I cannot really comment on at this time, but I don't mind at all to see if we can do something better.
I appreciate that very much, because the plan you submitted is not the one I'm going to vote for. I know you can do better, and I appreciate you putting in some vegetation in the back, but there's also room for a little bit more in the terms of some more landscaping on your landscape plan, if you could, please. I know you can fit in a few more. I mean, and you mentioned a variance, a parking, is that a parking?
Yes, ma'am, a parking variance, there's a setback variance. We would love to be able to keep this reduced footprint with the parking, as well as there's a loading zone, I believe, requirement that we would have one loading zone versus two. So there were 5 variances that were identified by code enforcement that we'll be seeking approval on from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding the landscaping, so that I have an understanding of what your desires and preferences are, we have the landscaping border in front of the
Right.
front of the store, and then some landscaping islands. Was there something in particular that you were looking for?
Did you have anything on the west side? There's the fence.
Yes, ma'am, that's the fence. We have a stormwater, I believe, trench
On the
or
west
something
side?
over there.
I was, is that where the stormwater is?
Yeah, they're using underground stormwater.
Oh, it's underground, okay. I was looking for
I mean,
a,
there's some above ground too in the back southwest corner.
Right.
Okay.
But on the east side, under the pavement, there's
It-
stormwater pipe.
Well, that's under the pavement on the east side, but
Right.
The west side, yeah, there's a
there's a pipe or
there's
something there.
a drainage pipe, there's
Okay.
a.
there's a drainage,
like a
there's
yard
also
drain.
a small retention area back next
It's a yard drain,
Yeah.
okay. Well, then the only place would be just in the front. And is that, I assume that's grass then?
Yes,
It's hard to
ma'am.
tell, you know?
Yeah, we'd be proposing to sod the front of it, do hydro seed on the back for stabilization, and then the landscaping proposed in the front is some shrubs and I believe some, maybe some ornamental grasses. Which right now, it's just concrete, basically, right up. There's some
Right.
curb cuts that are just concrete islands. So it's not very sightly. We're proposing even to sod into the right-of-way to beautify that portion of along the road.
Well, I appreciate if you can do what you can.
Absolutely.
Code enforcement mentions that the easements, restrictions, covenants, and provisions are not provided. Have they been provided yet, Matt, or?
It primarily is the stormwater maintenance agreement that needs to be developed between the developer and the town attorney's office in preparation of filing.
Can you refresh our memory? What's the 33-COM?
The perm 33 is a recommendation from the state DOT to make application sooner than later for any highway work that's going to happen on the site, so they can get a little bit of a jump on the review process.
Okay. So you have that information?
Yes, sir. We have that process under review currently
Okay.
with DOT.
All right. Mr. Schiller, any comments?
No, engineering-wise, the plans were fine, the SWIP was fine, stormwater's fine. When we met prior to the submittal, and the only comment was, and they have done so based on the site plan, is to leave an area that would be the northeast corner of their site kind of open for a potential future connection to the east for access management. And right now, the only thing up there is parking, which is fine.
Okay. How much of a variance do they need for parking? Man, I was wondering how close is it? I mean, 35 parking spaces seems pretty good.
Yes,
I don't know.
it is, and I don't want to step in to code enforcement's area, but I believe it's 72 stall reduction. I believe that the zoning ordinance would call for something in the order of over 107, or around 107 stalls, I think.
The parking code basically takes the gross square footage of a retail facility, applies a formula to that, and it's a considerable amount of parking space.
Yeah. All right, well, the ZBA is going to have to deal with that. So we're early in the process, and you're probably aware that we have to go through the environmental review. So we can't make any decision. There's a few things for you to do. If anybody has any comments before I move on?
I had a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
As a follow-up to what Rebecca's saying in terms of the style and the look of the building, there's also a Dollar General farther out Southwestern, closer to the stadium and to ECC, which was recently built, and I've been by it several times. And that too has a better landscape look, frankly. But the thing that strikes me about the place is the signage. The signage is very low and it's small, as opposed to the one over here on Walden that I noticed today. It's this gigantic sign way up in the air. I mean, is there anything about signage that you would consider doing something like the Southwestern one?
Right.
Not the one Rebecca's talking about. I don't know what that sign looks like, but the one farther out. It's very simple looking, and it doesn't stand out like most of them.
Right. So as you can imagine, signage is a pretty important marketing piece of any kind of store to help draw in traffic and customers so they can identify your store and see it from a distance. That particular sign that you're referencing by the Bill Stadium, I believe it's a monument sign, so it is kind of lower to the ground. It might be 8 or 6 feet tall, something like that. That was a specific requirement of the town of Hamburg zoning ordinance, where they restricted the use of the, what we term a pylon sign, or the freestanding taller sign. So it's definitely a, a recommendation, if you would like to put that to the town board, to have them as a condition of site plan approval or something, that Dollar General would put in a different type of signage. It's
Because it's
something that we
wide
can
open
take
there. I
back.
mean, you wouldn't need a sign that's way up in the air on Broadway. It's wide open right there.
Yeah.
But consider that too.
Yes, sir. I
Okay.
sure will.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I could point out, as far as the sign code is concerned, a ground sign or a pylon sign is limited to 4 feet off of the ground. Other municipalities have made adjustment to that height requirement based on snow pile and other aesthetic amenities around it that blocks the view. And within our town, a pylon sign could range anywhere from 8 feet from finished grade to 25 feet.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly allowable in there. So, as I've recommended several times prior, should the board want to look at the sign code and make some adjustments so that the pylon signs are not obtrusive and/or the ground signs are a little bit more palatable with their design standards, it's probably better to make that recommendation rather than go through each applicant through a variance process.
Okay.
Eventually, that's where that goes.
All right. Let's see what they come back with. Thank you.
Councilman Mazer, any comments? All right. I think the earliest we could do seeker would be the, what did Lisa say, April 20th meeting, I believe. So, barring no other issues, if everything's taken care of, we could have you back on April 20th and do the seeker, the environmental review. And if there are no issues with that, and we have a negative declaration, then we could move on to approval. Recommend approval to the town board.
Okay.
And then you'd have to go to the town board for final approval.
May I ask, in between that, should I go ahead and speak to the ZBA before we talk about
Yes.
the
Yes.
seeker?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that should
That's
be
for-
right away.
You should also provide any amendments or adjustments that were suggested tonight through some comment from the board. beneficial.
Yeah. Okay?
Just a quick question, probably a dumb question, but why is there such a discrepancy between the number of parking spaces that Dollar General is looking for and the code? Is it that we're just especially generous? I understand it's based on the square footage of the retail place.
Primarily what the code requires.
Okay.
You know, per building size.
So it's a pretty simple formula, and Dollar General has a more sophisticated formula that is more business friendly.
Yes, sir. I mean, the proposed number of stalls is the number that Dollar General knows is going to work very well for their operations. A lot of times what you see in the zoning ordinance is you try to really have a broad brush so that you can encapsulate a lot of different types of retail. And so you have retail that's a small mom and pop, but then you have your mid-sized retail, and then you have big retailers like Walmart's or Lowe's, where they really, you might go to a Walmart, I know I can, or a Lowe's, I can be there for an hour or two browsing. And what we find in a store like a Dollar General is the shopping visit is maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes max. And so you're turning over those parking stalls a lot faster.
How
And so
frequent-
that's why it
I'm sorry,
works
I
with
didn't-
fewer.
Okay. How frequently do you find that you need to request a variance on parking?
I would say it's not that uncommon, but the significance of the variance, I think, in this particular case of 107 stalls is a little bit on the higher end of what we normally would see. But as you can imagine, municipal codes for towns can vary considerably. So, and it depends all on the zoning. You know, sometimes you'll be in an urban type area and they have no parking requirements whatsoever. So it really is a mixed bag.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, anything else? All right, then I will move to table to a future meeting, hopefully April 20th. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
All right, next we have site plan for, we're busy on Broadway today. Broadway and Bowen Development, 5827 Broadway. Lucas?
Lucas James. Forgive me, I'm moving slow. I injured my back this last weekend. I've been in bed most of the last 4 days. Not fun at all.
Yeah.
But I've been through it before. So I'm proposing a mixed-use building here up on Broadway at the old Desiderio site. It's a 1,800 square foot, approximately, two-story building. The first floor to consist of a boutique, smaller, private label coffee shop with a drive-through, and also 2 to 3 other commercial spaces for office or smaller retail, as well as 2 units on the first floor and 6 units on the second floor that are intended for motel, extended use stay. I do want to, I'll just say right up front, I do want to meet with Ed Schiller probably in the next couple weeks here to discuss a couple of the specifics of your comments, if you don't mind. I know my engineer wanted to as well, to clarify a couple things, but I'm sure we can address any other questions. I'm sure there'll be many.
And this is zoned correctly? And
It is.
are variances required for?
So there's no variances required for the building. There is a very minor variance. Matt can explain if you like. It's more of a technicality. There's some existing already paved area. It's been paved for the last, 50 years. That is on the property line within 10 foot of it. And Matt informed me that they were not allowed to put that pavement there when they did it 50 or 60 years ago. So he's wanting me to get a variance for that pre-existing pavement that's there. So we've already filed for that variance. That meeting is coming up here soon. It doesn't affect the building at all. There is also, in case you're wondering, if you're looking closely at the site plan, there is an encroachment. There is an area right next to the property that Desiderio has always used as part of their parking. It's owned by United Refining, which is the gas station next door. And I have an encroachment agreement with them that I'm allowed to continue using it as it was previously used as parking or other space like that. So I have that agreement. I gave it to Matt. And I'm also filing a variance for the exact same issue on their side of the property because there is existing pavement that's been there for 40 to 60 years within 10 foot of the property line on their property as well. So 2 variances I've filed for those.
Questions, members? Comments?
So I understand, Ben, that you're planning on, that was their dumpster pad in the back. You're going to continue to use that? That on the neighbor's property?
Yeah, we have it
Continue to use that.
You're going to continue to use that?
as parking primarily, yes.
Okay.
Which is the use of it before. I think they might have had a dumpster back
It
in the
was
corner.
definitely a dumpster.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, you're going to just screen that in and keep using it?
Yeah, so we do have our current, or, proposed dumpster there, and it is screened in. I hate the look of a dumpster, and I would never leave one exposed. We will absolutely screen that in with shrubbery preferred over a fence, but we'll do a fence if it's preferred.
Okay, thank you. I was confused about that whole corner piece.
Yeah, it is a little bit confusing, because I just assumed it was part of the property until I got into it.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. I tried actually to purchase the property, but United Refining, they're in a mode where they refuse to sell or do anything like that. So they won't sell a small parcel. They just don't care enough about it.
It's Quickville.
What's that?
Is it Quickville?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
owned by United Refining.
Quickville has a severe irritation with Western New York because of Amherst.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's
Good to
a little
know.
piece that Amherst, anyway, it's a long story, it's been in the paper, and so they are not very happy with Western New York. It's not your fault.
They were actually very nice to deal with. They gave me the encroachment agreement very easily.
Right.
They refused to sell a small parcel like that.
Ed, any comments?
No, I apologize. I emailed everybody letters on this, because I knew I mailed it, you wouldn't get it in time. So, there's still required submissions for the plans. Drainage has to be revised or enhanced. I assume one of the things they're going to want to talk about is the SWIP. My opinion is that even though there's existing pavement there, they're disturbing the entire site by the time they get all done, one way or another. So a SWIP, I'm saying a SWIP is required. And the town as an MS4 has that right, whether it's less than an acre or not, they can still ask for a SWIP.
We'll discuss in more detail later, but just so you know, it was actually considered in the purchase of the property that there was already so much hard surface paving, pre-paved areas. So, I discussed with my engineer beforehand, and he confirmed that we'd be well under a 1 acre area of new soil disturbance, which is what what they're looking for. But and furthermore, the height of the building is stationed as such that it uses the existing grades. We actually don't have to touch the most of the blacktop area that's there, besides a potential resurface. But that's all done and designed purposely to not need a SWIP, being well under an acre. But I feel it's best to discuss it with my engineer, because he's more, and you are more knowledgeable than I on it for sure.
Right.
So we'll do that before the next meeting. We're not looking for an approval. I'm not looking for an approval today, but I would like to get any questions out there, anything else that you guys see that, that you want adjusted or changed, questions asked. I just want to be thorough. I've already filed for the COM 33 form from the DOT. I'm assuming that they'll require at least some kind of short traffic study. So I've already commissioned that. I'll have it within a week or two to study the amount of traffic that'll come in and out of the site. So I'll have that prior to the next meeting. I'm just assuming that they'll want it because there's a drive-through there. And we're also proposing to eliminate, there's currently 2 curb cuts on the north side of the property on Broadway, and we're proposing to eliminate the one that's closest to the intersection because we believe that the site will function better without it, and the DOT would probably want us to anyway, so we're just getting ahead of the game, and we're eliminating a curb cut there. And then also the existing curb cut on the Bowen side, we're moving as far away from the intersection as possible for the same reason, to make the site flow much smoother and people pulling in and out, much better access, safer. And we expect the DOT might have asked for that too, so we're just trying to fully be prepared and design ahead of it.
How about this motel? Can you give us more information?
Yeah, how much time you got? You said you're not in a hurry, so.
You know,
He's hoping to sit down before the payments wear off, I think.
No, I got all night. It's all good. My wife is going to bed early, so. So I own a number of pieces of rental property in the town here and other surrounding towns, and this COVID pandemic has shed light on a lot of new issues, potential issues, things like that. So my brother also is in real estate as well, top agent. His picture is all over the place on properties. People think I look like him. Anyway, what he's done to a number of his properties now is he's converted them to fully furnished, shorter-term rentals. Put them on Vrbo and many other similar sites like that. And they command a much higher rent that way. They're safer. They're not subject to the same eviction rules. So, if there's an eviction moratorium, it doesn't apply the same way. So basically, that's the intent of this. Is they're basically going to be listed on Vrbo and other sites like that. And there's a ton of, it's very highly dense residential area, and the density of apartments in that area is very high. And so this would add another dynamic to that area, which I think would be very appealing when people that live there who don't have room in their apartment for a family coming into town, things like that. This would attract them. This would be an easy place they could stay for a weekend, a week, 2 weeks, and extended stay would be available if they wanted to stay for a month or 2 months, whatnot. And I think it would also help the town because it would allow for to bring more people and business into the town that wouldn't otherwise be able to stay. They'd be forced to go up on Transit Road or further away and stay in a hotel or a motel that's further away. So I think it'd be pretty convenient, and it's a pretty ideal location for it.
is a special use permit required for something like that, Matt?
Not with the motel.
No.
Don't believe so.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. Can you explain what's on the first floor again?
What's on the first floor? Yeah, so
It's just, I see a drive-through here, which would imply that there's some sort of service or something,
Tim Horton.
but I don't see that on a floor plan. You see that on a floor plan?
No, I'm confused also.
yeah, what we're applying for here is to build the building. It's it's not for the people that are going to be staying. It's not for the build-outs of the commercial spaces. But I do have planned a boutique coffee shop, like I mentioned before, for that northernmost piece of the building.
So closer to Broadway?
Closer to Broadway, yeah. That's the coffee shop boutique with the drive-through. And then there's two or three other potential commercial spaces that can be leased to whatever tenant meets within the bounds of the zoning for that area. They can occupy the space, but they're not identified yet. And
So
then
this suite on the first floor, is that really going to be a hotel suite?
Yeah, so those are two of the motel extended stay apartments that are on the first floor, and then the other 6 of them are on the second floor.
Okay, and you have to cross through the drive-through to get into the units on the first floor?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk that wraps around the building, so you certainly don't have to cross through the drive-through, but you could. But it's also very far back in the drive-through. It's not like it's in the first 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 spots. It's way back in the drive-through. But again, the expected entrance is from the sidewalk that goes right to that entranceway.
Yeah, but you have, okay, so you got a small section that shows the door, and then you've got all types of plants.
I do have larger prints and elevations if anyone wants to see them from multiple angles.
Okay, well, no,
You want me to-
at least I better understand now.
You want me to throw them on your desk for you? I can.
No, that's okay. It's all right.
They are, it's actually quite a bit more helpful to look at a larger one. I don't mind at all.
So that's also the emergency, like the second egress for the second floor, is that first floor exit for units 101 and 102.
Yeah, there's two main entrances to the second floor, and that side or back, however you look at it, entrance is one of them, yes.
The second floor plan's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Matt, any other comments?
I can say the pre-submittal meeting was very beneficial with Ed, myself, and the applicant. And I, really think that the driveway entrances, pedestrian access from a public way are complementing the unit itself. I do want to clarify, it is the zoning code, not the code official, that requires the variances. This was a demolished property, the former restaurant. After fire and damage, the building was removed. The demolition permit was very clear that all appurtenances were to be removed, parking included, but, for economic purposes, we're going to reutilize what's there. So part of the design should be to verify whether or not the existing paving is able to support, the vehicles, emergency vehicles, and what have you, that it meets the minimum standards laid out for private paved sections. There are variances going on both of the properties, because both of the properties are being affected. They need relief from setback requirements that the zoning code requires. Again, it's something that the town wants to waive. It's perfectly free to just eliminate those standards. The standards are there to direct an applicant on how to develop their properties. And that's it.
Anything else?
I do have quite, intentionally, I do have a very modern design on the building there. That's on purpose. No expense will be spared. It's going to be a very high-end facility. These apartments are luxury, all tile, high-end, nothing cheap in them. It'll be a gorgeous building.
I just have a question. I mean, you have I don't know what a boutique coffee shop is. But
Boutique.
you've got an awful lot of cars lined up on your stacking for your drive-through.
That's because my engineer is very thorough, and he wants to show that it can handle a lot. I don't think it'll take quite that many, but we'll see.
Okay, and to the south of here is residential, right?
It's a mixed use.
It's Bell Tower.
multifamily
Bell
mixed
Tower.
use.
But it's the apartment complex.
That's the Bell Tower Village.
Bell Tower, Bell Tower. And, I mean, they had the backside of a restaurant, and they had the backside of a dumpster for years that they looked at, but there were never any complaints, but they didn't have cars coming around all the time with the traffic, and I'm wondering if there's any way to shield the view of, you've got a detention basin, I'm wondering if there's room between the detention basin and southerly property line to plant a row of trees.
They're showing a fence there.
Are there some-
Yeah.
That's it.
Wood screen fence.
Which is the fence? Which line is the fence? Is it right on the property line? Is that what you're saying?
Must be, pretty close.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, well,
They built that fence actually on this property a little bit.
Oh, so that's not your fence, that's the neighbor's fence?
Yeah,
Belongs to the
right. And it's pretty.
already there.
It's already there. It's a wood-on-wood fence. It's actually in very poor condition, and if they'll allow me, I'll fix it up, because I don't want the people in the drive-through to see the
That
apartment building.
maybe you could landscape between the fence and the,
Yeah,
on the inside there.
so I wish I could. I really can't, though, because
Because
the detention basin.
Takes up too much space.
Yeah, and if we're forced to do the 100-year and the SWIP that Ed is indicating that we may have to, that will actually make that detention basin even bigger.
But your basin would be vegetated, it's grass, right?
Right, yeah, it'll stay grass, yeah. I would love to put trees there, but
Better than
there's just no
nothing.
room.
You can't put trees in a detention basin.
No, you can't.
What if they're weeping willows?
Then you got a maintenance nightmare. So, okay. Thank you.
If there's nothing else, you did say you're going to meet with Mr. Schiller?
Yeah, I'd like to set up a meeting with him. I called him a few weeks ago, but he's very, very busy man. Yeah, but is there any other concerns that anyone has? I'm hoping to avoid any surprises next time when I will be looking for an approval. I just want to be really clear about that. So is there any other questions?
Well, that's kind of why I'm asking if you're going to, because I think you got to take care of a few things.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, but that's, that's certainly, that's not going to be, we'll do that. That's not going to be a big deal. We'll take care of whatever he needs.
I can't think of anything else other than what we discussed.
The variance will be done by the time we meet next.
All right, so,
I had
Go
a
ahead.
quick question.
Yeah.
Over the entrances to the apartments, it's not going to be covered, right? It's going to be just, you open the door and it's open.
Yeah, there's actually some flat awnings that come out over most all of the entrances.
Okay.
It's kind of a nice look, kind of like a Starbucks type look. I do have the elevations that are larger from both sides if anyone wants to see them. Because that print in there is quite small.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
sure, Councilman Mazur?
I don't know what deliveries these motel or hotel rooms would have. There's linens or this restaurant or whatever, coffee shop is going to have deliveries. Is there enough room for deliveries?
Yeah, good question. There's 2 loading zones built into the site. So there's more than adequate room actually for that. But also noted, there's a full set of laundry inside the building, so the tenants won't have to go anywhere for laundry and linens. The housekeeper will be able to have full access to it and be able to change sheets and everything on site. And there's ample storage right near the laundry area as well.
And there's room for emergency vehicles to get in there?
Yeah, the entranceways are quite large, and I actually had the engineer add a couple feet to the width between the parking spots in the building because I hate a tight parking spot. It might have something to do with the big 8-foot bed truck I drive. I just hate small parking areas.
All right, great. Okay, then I'm going to move to table this to a future meeting, hopefully April 20th. I don't want to promise. We would have to do seeker, just like the last project.
Yeah, was seeker started?
Pardon me?
Was seeker started, Matt?
I've got a note here that we had requested, I believe, additional copies. My
Yeah, those
understanding
are-
is the board members received their copies, and most of our departments have, but it wasn't enough to send out for consideration to agencies.
We did the full number of copies that were requested, and we actually added a couple pages to it the very next day when Matt said we were a couple pages short. And actually, Ed, do you mind, did you look at the engineering report? Did you actually see that? Oh, okay, you did.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
it, yeah.
All right, cool, because he didn't have it the first day, but he had it the very next day, so, awesome.
I'll double check that.
Okay, yeah, I think the seeker should have been started when we filed.
All right, I did get a note from, I get the addresses mixed up. You're 5827?
Correct.
Yeah, Lisa from the attorney's office says that 5827 has not gone out for coordination yet, as I am awaiting them to provide an additional document.
It's been a month. I don't know. I was told everything was complete.
So, I don't know what
Does
that
it say
is.
what document?
She did not.
Can I have a contact number for the attorney's office?
The attorney's here. You could,
Oh,
684-3342, call me tomorrow.
684
3342.
3342. Will do.
I'll check with Lisa, I don't know to what she was referring.
Yeah, she didn't tell me the whole thing. So,
If anyone thinks of any other questions or potential issues, they're welcome to reach out to me personally. I run LJ Construction. Just call that number, they'll get you in contact with me, or you can take down my cell phone right now, if anyone wants it.
I'll write it down.
868-1617.
16,
1617.
It's on his application
It's
form.
on the application.
okay.
And when telemarketers call, you could give it to them too. I love those calls.
All right, so I made a motion. Did we have a second yet?
I'll second.
On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, thanks, Lucas. All right, next we have a site plan review, another Broadway project, 5680 Broadway. Plum Creek. Anyone? I don't.
How we doing? Good evening, my name is Jason Havens, representing Frank Trabuskowitz at the 5680 multi-use dwelling, and known as the Plum Bottom Creek Apartments. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
would you like me to explain the
Yeah,
project?
just give us a rundown and a summary. of
Certainly.
what-
So the project is essentially a two-story building, 4 units in each. The lower floor, which would be the third floor, would be a parking area for up to or not to exceed 12 vehicles. The units are going to be located behind the second building that's already on the property, and basically looking to add these units as a third building to the property.
You had a project there going a while back, and that's kind of still pending? Is that, or is that never came to fruition, right? Never,
I don't think it received recommendations pending some outstanding.
okay, because I think we approved it
It was an
at the,
8-unit garage structure.
yeah, I thought-
It was a garage structure, which is actually shown here. So this is, the reason for that is that that is not going to be immediately part of this project. However, as part of the site plan review process, anything in the future that could become that within the site is to be shown. So we've shown that as a future possible building. So again, we're not proposing on that. We showed it on the site plan simply so that you could all see that if there is a future development of that structure, it would be included now as a future building.
good to know. Any questions? Comments? Rebecca?
Those,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, those 6 cars, that 6-car garage was intended as an improvement for the benefit of the residents who are already living in the existing 2 structures.
That's correct, and right now they don't have a covered structure. That would be the benefit of utilizing that space, yes.
Ed?
Go ahead. When you're finished,
No, we can take turns.
no, I want to.
Finish up, Stan.
Okay, I got it. All right, I'll be fast then. Sounds like there's more. So on the east elevation, that's going to be at ground level. We just don't see it here in this depiction. On the west, is that going to be, I assume that the first floor they'll be able to, they're not going to be staring out into the abyss.
No, it would be, so the grade would actually slope from north to south on the west elevation.
Okay.
So they'll actually have a slope on the basement level would actually be sloped from basically open grade to, at the north end, it would actually be at the second floor. So the reason for that is in order to access the basement, you have to make your way around the building to get down the slope to get into the building.
Right.
So slope will occur on both the west and the east side of the building.
Would the people living in the apartments on the north be able to egress their apartment in the event of a fire by getting out through the porch, or is it a drop?
They would absolutely be able to egress from the porch, certainly, yes. Second floor would certainly have to have access from, a dangle or ladder condition, but yes, they would have the access.
Yes.
Okay, I picked up on Matt's comment about floodplain management, and a portion of the building is in the floodplain. And if any portion of the building is in the floodplain, according to the numbers and the BFE and the topo you provided, the corner's in. If any portion is in, according to FEMA, the entire building's in. So you're gonna have to bring it up on fill and get a COMA.
None of the building, nor is the access road within the 100-year floodplain.
Well, according to this, the 100-year flood is 680, and according to this, you got a 680 topo going right through your building.
Using the FEMA floodplain mapping that was overlaid onto this property, that's not what it shows.
But the FEMA floodplain mapping is superseded by ground truthing and topo. The FEMA map is our guidelines, and they're pretty good, but when you get right down to the nitty-gritty of providing topographic information on site, it supersedes the map.
And where can I access that data?
It's in the flood law. It's in the FEMA regs too.
Yeah, I'm referring to the 680 elevation. Where is that shown?
Well, Matt, you said the BFE was 680.
Yes, and it's accessible through the map service center provided by FEMA.
Right.
It'll give you the boundaries, the elevation, the profiles, as well as the flow rates.
And so what I'm saying is that your basement floor is 678.5. Even if it's used for parking and storage, it's in the flood zone. You can be below grade with parking and storage.
Yes.
But it requires flood insurance if you have any portion of a mortgage.
Understood. It also needs to be flow through as well.
It's gonna nail you.
Right.
You might wanna look at, I guess where I'm going with this is you might wanna look into the cost of your policy because you have to insure the entire building, all the way up.
Yes.
And you might be able to find that you could alter your grade by a little bit.
We are, one of the conditions, while I appreciate that information, thank you both, the one condition that we are in some ways restricted to is the connection to the sanitary sewer.
Okay.
Rise in the building would not actually be all that much of a challenge, but we are very cautious as to making sure our connection to the existing 6-inch sanitary sewer is feasible without causing too much of a grade issue on the the south side of the building. So that has been a concern of the conditions on grading. So we'll certainly look into that.
I appreciate if you did, because if there's any way that you can remove any floodplain issues with your building through a conditional letter map revision or unfill, it would be a plumb or F with fill, and it has to be compacted fill, it can't be
Right.
dumped, you know all that. It removes it from the floodplain by FEMA, then you never have to address it again. Doesn't say it won't get wet, we could have something bigger than the big, but it means you can get FEMA out of the picture.
And we would certainly prefer that.
So take a look at it. If you can do it, fine. If you can't, then you have to deal with Matt anyway, but you have to deal with the floodplain management stuff. But I worked for FEMA for over 30 years indirectly, and some of it just is stuck in my head forever. So I'd like you to not be encumbered if you can avoid it.
I appreciate that.
Other-
I prefer not to be in the floodplain myself.
Oh, well, I know, but,
That's why I.
but you can't rely on the map.
Positioned it that way to prevent it, but
Right, but see, you use the map, and then when you
Yeah.
come up with your site topo and you deal with the numbers, then the numbers put you in. And-
Certainly. Yeah, we utilized our surveyor's line work, which we assume would be referenced by that. So we'll obviously go back to that and look at it. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other questions, members? Mr. Schiller?
No, I sent a letter out, I don't know if you received it.
I did not yet, not yet.
There was no engineering report, no SWIP submitted. I gave you the requirements, the drawings were lacking in a lot of the requirements. and you talked about the garage that was previously proposed, and you're showing that as a future build. So in actuality, the seeker form needs to be amended because it's not including that. Otherwise, you're going to get segmentation on the whole site. And your engineering and stormwater is going to have to include that when you do the calculation.
Yeah, so the storm work does include all the future potential builds.
Okay.
That said, there was a drainage report, and the reason that there was no SWIP was because we were 40,000 square feet, well under an acre. So following the acre rule,
Well, you got to include the garage.
Sorry, we did.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
That's fine.
We included basically anything that was potential for this job and the future build.
Okay, but I didn't get any reports for anything, so.
What's that?
I didn't get any reports for anything. I didn't get an engineering report, I didn't get anything.
They should have all been included. I submitted 31 copies. That all went in with the site plan, so.
I did not receive them. And the drawing, yeah, like I said, the drawing, what I sent as part of the letter was the attachment for the drawings. There's just information missing.
Where do you know where the responses were being sent? I haven't received anything, so.
They were, the address would have been to, it was on the application. Would have been to the 25,
My residence.
255 rounds? Yep.
And I apologize for asking, but do you know when it was sent? Only because if there was a mail issue, I got to call the postal service, obviously.
Yeah, probably, to be honest with you, probably not till Monday.
28th?
Yeah,
February 28th was the letter.
yeah, Monday.
So, okay, so it's likely it just didn't get to me yet. Okay. Okay. And I do have for you, Ed, it's the stormwater management
Oh, okay.
thing from there.
All right.
Matt, any other issues?
I just would like to reiterate Becky's comments. I mean, it's better service you in the long run to go through that process of amending that map, rather than investing in the.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll certainly do that regardless of what happens. And, yeah, we'll make amendments to that
We're
matter.
holding off on the garages, we're afraid of how close it would be to the floodplain of the building this way. The reason that project went on hold because of that, they want
Well, we, and I'm not sure of the process because we did determine negative declaration based on the last project, seeker. We
Right.
may reopen seeker to incorporate the second building, and, treat it as a whole. If and when you do decide to install the 6-unit building,
to make the
it's
garages
done.
So, okay, so if that's fine by me, we can do that. We
Yeah.
can certainly process seeker now with both.
Yeah, but then.
I would
yeah,
prefer that.
Then it's out of the way.
It's done, right.
You come back to the garage.
The project there.
You're doing-
Right, exactly, which is why we showed it on the site plan anyhow.
Same thing with the site plan. If the site plan shows it, and you deal with it.
Right.
Stormwater, then when you come back in just for that garage, it becomes a lot simpler.
Certainly, yeah.
Dave, anything else? If nothing else, then again, we will, I'll move to table this to a future meeting, hopefully April 20th. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Site plan review for the soil recycling facility, 6125 Genesee Street. Thanks for your patience.
No problem. Good evening. I believe, based on the history, because we started this application, I think, on about a year and a couple months ago, and have been through several iterations and rounds of comments with the town and the town engineer. The project has addressed environmental concerns, has addressed site plan, SWIP concerns, stormwater concerns, and we were down basically to like an issue. I think we had to submit a easement that we had executed by the supervisor, and we recorded that and have the recording receipt right now, and I forwarded that over to Ed, and copy will go to your office probably tomorrow. So I think we've pretty much taken care of everything that was required for the application. I'd be happy if you want me to kind of summarize what we're going to do. We've done it a couple times in front of this board.
We did go through the secret process already,
Yeah.
so, yeah, can you give us a quick summary?
Yeah, just to, basically, it's a New York State DEC permitted soil recycling facility. It's operated under New York State Part 360 regulations. The site will take in excess construction soils and wet soils from pipe trenches and utility installations, dry and screen that soil, separate out, let's say, brick and plastics if there happen to be, and then put that soil back into the market after it's been recycled. So that's basically the process. There's a complete, basically a pre-approval process for it, so we have to document where all of the materials come in from. There's a monitoring process during the actual screening and separation, and there's a post-testing prior to removal from the site. And also part of that, there's a tracking and reporting requirement to the state with a closure cost assessment that we'll have to post a bond to make sure that if anything happens that we can properly close the site and clean it up. And right now, with regard to the DEC process, the last question they had is we needed a proof of corporate, I think, standing. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Good standing?
Yeah, good standing, which I never really knew what that was for. We've been paying taxes forever. But it's like a $10 thing, but it takes a long time to get. We have got that, and that has been sent to the DEC today as well, and we expect to have our permit from them in short order. That's the brief summary.
Any questions, anybody?
No.
Ed, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Ed?
I just lost track of where we were with the special use permit. We placed comment on it. I'm not sure whether or not this is for the mining and the
Soil recycling.
recycling.
Right.
I don't recall record of any minutes of the public hearing and or issuance of special use, but that's while the operations begin. We'll need to have that in place. So maybe we have to backtrack with our.
Yeah, I know we submitted for combined approval, site plan and special use simultaneously. So that was our task.
Right. That would be at the town board level,
Town
right?
board level,
Oh,
that's correct. And then, if possible, the reclamation plan, if we have a copy of it, or if you had not obtained all of that documentation yet.
We've submitted that. Chris Price has submitted that. That's put on record earlier.
Yeah. All right, so when the goes to the town board, they will have to do the special use permit as well. But you have to have do we need a public hearing on that then?
I think the board would have to either call for, or they may have already, as it said,
I lost
in
track.
October, when I was commenting on special use and the documentation hadn't arrived yet as to where that was in the process.
All right. Can I have a motion? Anybody?
Are we ready? So we're ready to move on?
I believe we are, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm clear because I've been going through this, I went through this whole thing again, and you're using a small portion of the entire property.
That's correct.
And you're restricted to that. And I kept looking at the neighborhood, trying to figure out the worst-case scenario of dust and noise and grinding machines and stuff.
And all those secret issues were discussed and addressed in our plan to be mitigated. In fact, our operation will have less than what the normal mining operation.
Yeah,
That
there's
wasn't
really
correct.
nobody real near either.
No.
So I thought the location being pretty good, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan as proposed.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
On the question? All's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank
John, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Last time I had a mask.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again, John. Okay, we have a site plan review for the rezone at 4781 Transit. To recap from my vantage point, we have performed seeker and we also passed the rezone. The town board does not wish to act on the rezone until the planning board has recommended approval of the site plan. I don't know if I should throw this in or not, but a factor to consider is that the rezone was recommended for approval based on one factor, that the north driveway was going to be eliminated, and therefore improving access management on Transit Road. There were other factors as well, though. There was discussion that the project was consistent with the comprehensive plan, and the rezone was actually less intensive as the prior zoning was commercial. This project calls for 14 apartment units, right? And a separate building with a bank and drive-through, 3 stories and 45 feet high. Okay, gentlemen, take it from there. Could you
You said everything. Sure. So Ari Goldberg from law firm of Barclay Damon for the applicant, Anthony Pandolfi, project engineer from Carmina Wood Morris. So we are here tonight, as the chairman stated, to discuss the site plan, seeking your recommendation of the site plan. You did issue a recommendation on the rezoning itself and the neg deck. Chairman Connolly did accurately summarize the project. One thing I also want to note about that rezoning and negative declaration recommendation was the proposed action as defined under SECRET did contemplate exactly the development, 8,000 square feet mixed use, and then the 2,000 square foot bank. So there's no secret that this site plan's been coming. It's even part of the rezoning petition as you submit a site plan application and a site plan itself. We have made some modifications to the plan based on comments from the town. My colleague Jeff Palumbo's been here before, as well as Mr. Pandolfi. So what we're really looking for tonight is just get your feedback on the site plan as it exists now. Obviously, there'll probably be questions regarding the northern drive aisle. I'll be happy to discuss that, absent a question or for the question itself.
Okay, I'm going to let the members go first. I have some things to say, but any questions?
Back to the bank, the drive-through, I just see a lot of conflicts in that parking area. You're going to have, I think what your commercial is on what would be the east side of the building. Are you going to have any commercial on the west side? I'm sorry, on the...
This is north.
North, okay. East side is going to have any commercial?
Meaning the rear?
Right, the rear.
I think there's just access space to the commercial that's all on the
Okay,
first
so
floor.
all the commercials will be on the front.
That's correct.
The transit road side.
Yep.
But the bank, as you're coming out, you're going to be coming out into the parking lot where I assume the tenants would be parking
Could be
there.
tenant parking there. I'm not sure we've fully discussed or contemplated exactly what's going to be dedicated to tenant parking versus commercial parking.
That just seems to be a nightmare. That's my opinion.
Sure.
Where do you see the conflicts taking
When you're
place?
dumped, when you're coming out.
Coming out of the bank drive-through.
People could be backing out in this.
People backing out, et cetera.
Sure. I don't think that'd be no different than people pulling into the bank and people backing out here, or people backing out from parking that we do not control.
If anything, I think there would be less parking. Most majority of the parking will be in front here. And assuming that the residents park back here, as may be the case, they will be moving in and out less frequently than the people using the retail. So exiting to the rear of the building, I believe, is much safer than coming.
Well, I wouldn't say coming out the front is any better, of course. But what I'm saying is that most of the drive-throughs I go through, you're not dumped out into the middle of a parking lot.
Well, it's not necessarily a parking lot. It's into the drive aisle. It's not.
All right, into the drive aisle.
And there is, medians to separate the parking and the drive-through.
Do we have landscaping on this aisle?
I
wonder if we could.
The landscape plan. There is a proposed tree there.
We could consider removing the tree and placing it elsewhere to ensure that there is clear vision as cars leave the bank aisle, kind of make this curve and then head north, or possibly As most people will do, they'll probably cut their empty spaces here, or they'll turn. But it is a proper drive aisle length and do require the parking.
I have a question.
Sure.
Where do you put the snow? I've been going in a lot to the site because the site kind of is a question to me. And I go like up to the gas station part to pop in and get the newspaper. And then the snow piles have been so high that you can't see traffic coming. You have to go real slow and kind of kick around the snow piles. So then I came over to your site and I drove in circles around the restaurant and everything and said, you know, I could see closing off that access because the driveway that I pull in like to go to the little thingy there is just past your property line. So there is a way to come in but the bank makes me crazy because the traffic's going to be dispersing onto the drive aisle of someone else's property. And then you said that there's a easement from your existing north driveway to go to the back behind.
Yeah, so
So if that driveway was taken out, please explain to me what was.
Right, so it's a reciprocal access easement. So we have access from our property to their property, and they have access from their property to our property. If we close this off, we are in violation of that easement.
They could close you off from the rest of their property.
And we would sue them, because they'd be violating a written easement. We would be under order to close this off, and we would be subjecting ourselves to a lawsuit. And I think one other thing to point out about the northern drive aisle is the DOT was contacted about this regarding seeker, and they said that there's no significant adverse environmental impact associated with the traffic of this project. And that traffic included, at the time, and still does, that northern driveway. In response to some of the consistent concerns, we have made this, it's right turn out only.
No left turn out. That was one of the changes that we discussed at the last meeting, and that is something that we have added to the site plan.
So then to make the left, you would have to go either to the other driveway or to the light.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah, there's for those who are unfamiliar with the context, the Tops Plaza has two access points, one about 235 feet south of our main entrance that is not lighted, and it's exactly opposite. I think that's French there. And then even further down, there is a lighted intersection.
The light's at French.
The light's at
Oh, the light, okay.
The light is at French.
Sorry.
You're across from the
Kmart or whatever.
the Kmart, way Dave's driveway there.
When I go there, I turn in here right away, so I don't use those ones, so I know the distance. Thank you. And then, is snow storage called out?
No, so we didn't note snow storage, but there is,
green space.
we're removing, existing parking spaces here. I do want to note one comment we received from Matt was, we're required to have some loading spaces. Just looking at the site plan, this is probably the only spot we can put those loading spaces, but there will still be sufficient green space, I think, to do snow storage there. There is green space along Transit, but you don't really necessarily want to put it there for visibility issues. So, but I think we can definitely note up along this northern green space for snow storage.
Well, you don't want to put it on your grass if you can avoid it, but it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, well, you also don't really want to pile it in the parking spaces either, especially when, we're already limited.
Yeah, so we're required 64 spaces, we provided 72. So conceivably, we could cut off one or two spaces, but I think one of the comments from Matt was we need to make sure that our parking is appropriate for whatever potential uses go into the commercial spaces.
You may have to haul your snow out.
Possibly.
One of the primary reasons for the setback requirements on required yards is
For snow storage. But what I'm going in my head, Matt, is that if that north driveway was there and you go to look and there's a pile of snow there.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't note it on the site plans for here. I would note it along the northern property line.
project under property maintenance, heavy events that we've experienced this year.
Yeah.
Look, it didn't snow at all, other than 3 major events. The piles were incredibly high.
They're huge.
It all came at once.
Right.
So those are the very few times where a property owner would then have to contract and remove snow, which is a dangerous situation. Again, during the course of the growing season, right on those required yards.
Sure, sure.
So if the piles get too high, you have to take it out. I mean, you have to maintain pedestrian access, you have to maintain your sight lines, and you have to maintain the number of parking spaces.
Fully comfortable with, what we do now is put it to the north in that same area, and fully comfortable, if it gets to that high level, then we'll remove it from site. No problem there.
As long as you
Status
think
quo.
it through.
Yep.
I have a couple.
Well, yes, we do want to get through, that's right.
Go ahead, Tony.
Is the, can you confirm for me which one of these elevations is correct? Because the rendering doesn't match the elevation.
Can I see which you're referring to? You might not be able to see the roof from the elevation.
No, I mean, you have stone shown here, and there's no stone shown here. The window mullions aren't the same. You've got siding shown on this whole side and on that side, and you don't have the same thing shown here. So which are we getting?
The architectural elevation. The rendering is an artistic interpretation. It could be incorrect. The elevation is the correct document. If there's any discrepancy, apologies.
Okay, so we throw this in the garbage.
If that's what you want to do, okay.
Recycle it, Tony.
Please recycle. Yes, thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Okay, so now and also you need if I'm correct, I know you needed a height variance, right?
Yeah, I think it's a 10-foot, 42-inch height variance. Existing structure is 35 feet, and we're going to 45.42.
Okay, but yet, the first time you were here, you told me that the plaza in the back would not be blocked any more than it's currently blocked because your building's the same height.
Now, the minutes reflect on September 15th, 2021, when I was here, that I said it was 45 feet. I checked that because there has been a lot of back and forth regarding the height. There was a letter submitted earlier today from the plaza owner's attorney, and it had several exhibits attached to it showing our building existing overlaid with a big fat rectangle. And I understand the purpose of the diagrams, and they can be persuasive, but I think an important thing to see within those diagrams is, regardless of it's whether the rectangle that we're proposing or the existing building with 35 feet in height, you can't see the plaza behind you. You can't see it now, and you won't be able to see it when our building's there because that's the status quo. You can't see it. And the zoning board factors that they will consider regarding the height variance do discuss exactly what we're discussing now. Possible detriments to the neighborhood, feasible alternatives, impact on the environment. I think the point is, can't see the plaza now when you're driving north or south, and our building doesn't change that. It adds a little more of a attractive feature to that site right now. There's no change in the view shed.
I was going to say, maybe I'm saying something that nobody does or wants to say, but it's not really the height that's the issue. I think it looks like it's the footprint of the site that extends farther to the south now, or will extend farther to the south. That's what could potentially.
I noticed that. I thought it was,
Because the height doesn't seem to make a difference. I can't see the stuff behind there now. I could understand why they would want people to see from transit, but they already have a building that's kind of in the way.
Yeah, that's
the existing building is actually further. The existing building footprint is further south, not including the bank, but the bank is a small, much shorter, just small in height. The footprint of the restaurant is actually further south. I don't have the demo.
We did. I think it should be. It might be the second page in the site plan.
We've looked at that many times, and I can say with certainty that the footprint of the restaurant is further south than our mixed-use building footprint.
Matt, can you remind me what other variances were required besides the height?
There's I think a 1.5 foot setback to the north.
Setback for the northern paved area. I think when they built it, they were a foot and something off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, we're decreasing the nonconformity that's there, and so we'll have to go for that one as well. But that's about 1.5 feet. I think it was in Matt's comments.
Well, if we do add the loading spaces there, it will be we'll have to adjust the variance, but it's still, I think the overall, it will be increasing the non-conforming setback.
There was talk about rotating the building, and Mr. Palumbo mentioned that it's not practical. Can you explain?
Yeah, so there would be significant more disturbance in basically taking this building and shifting it this way. We did look into it. More disturbance, it leaves the bank kind of hanging. Right now you have a nice flow that kind of matches the flow of traffic on Transit, which is a north-south kind of facade. Rotating it, you can't see the building at all when you're approaching north to south. And then we'd also be closer to the existing Briarcliff apartments there. And I don't think that's as compatible because we do have a 45-foot high building, and then it would be much closer to those existing apartments.
It would trigger 2 setbacks for the building, rear and side yard setbacks. So
2 setback variances.
2 variances, yeah. 2 additional variances would be needed for that.
Mr. Schiller, this might be a good time to mention the discussions with the DOT.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, you talked about the cross easement that exists, and there's cross permissions, basically. Out of curiosity, in the easement that you're giving to the property in the rear, where you have to provide access to your property, is it access to your property, or is it access to transit?
And access to our property to get to Transit Road.
Does it say that? Or does it say?
I could confirm with you the exact language. It's been a while and it's written in Courier New, so.
My discussions with DOT, I had a meeting with DOT today, not on this project, on another project, but this came up. They will support the town if they want to close that drive.
Yeah, we've also had I mean, we put it in the response to Matt's comment is, we'd like some clarification on the authority of the town under the AMOD law to close that northern drive aisle. Because it's existed well before the AMOD. So that's just, we don't have to have that clarification now, but I'm sure I'll talk to Matt about it. We'd love to be a part of those conversations with the DOT. We're unaware of that position considering their prior secret response.
Well, yeah, I mean, the secret response is separate from access management. Like I said, I was meeting with them on something else, this came up. Similar to what we did with them on Walden and Central for the car wash, we asked for closure of the driveways on Walden, which they agreed with, which was actually put in the new site plan. So, yeah, I mean, as far as code, I'll leave that to the attorney's office and code office, but, it's an access management issue. There's a revision to the site so that now the door is open to make requirements.
Can I just bring up maybe a crazy hypothetical here, but this is the only access driveway for this parcel. Let's say sometime down the line, the Tops Plaza does something, and now you guys want them to close their one driveway too. Now now you got the light at French Road is the only way to get to our site if, say that ever happens.
Well, that would have to be brought up at the time, whoever came in with an application for that project, then that would have to be a consideration.
But it's the way it's going, that's certainly a possibility in the future. And now you're talking about access to our site from the light at French Road, which is
I think Anthony might
quite
be
far
saying
away.
the same interpretation of the code now as is being applied to us in closure of the northern driveway should be applied to any renovation of the top site, which would require.
If that is the case, and then this curb cut gets closed, now you're talking about the only driveway at French Road.
Which is preferable. It's a light. I mean, that's access.
Yeah.
That is what the point is.
That makes
That's
access
Right,
to our site quite
more than
cumbersome.
500 feet away from our main entrance. Would hope that there'd be considerations of the fire department, emergency access vehicles, other citizens and residents who are living there.
That's the purpose of the access management requirements, and without getting into specifics, and we'll get those to you. There are some linear distances that would trigger the removal of driveways and such. So, when I did some measurements along the GIS mapping, this fell below the trigger point for distances from other driveways, where the Tops Plaza, I believe 300 feet is the distance that was required for that triggering point, but I can get those specifics.
Okay. Yeah, we'll continue that conversation. It's obviously,
Emergency access, to be honest with you, I mean, you gotta be able to get to it, you gotta be able to bypass the traffic, that's their access management is a way to satisfy emergency access. These are fully sprinkled buildings as well, so I mean, it's outside of EMS, fire management response is a moot point, outside of a medical service.
And the only other comment I had, I know we went back and looked a little bit on stormwater, and I think it still owes.
Yeah,
Still used to owe some submittals.
We have,
Yeah.
you know, Matt made kind of a photometric plan. You know, we're gonna provide on-site detention as well. So there are still changes to the technical engineered plans that we will be making.
Matt, anything else you want to discuss?
We did not discuss the location and sizing of the signage.
Yes.
One of the last bullet points.
there is yeah.
Like to at least have that conversation, have some sort of a maximum size that's available, so when any time comes, we're not running the zoning board.
There is an existing sign, but I think, given that the uses are kind of changing, I think it'll be
Just remodeled.
remodeled.
So they're configured, we'll-
Yeah. Do you know, is the current one conforming?
I have to look at the size.
Okay.
That's going to be based on two things. One, the building frontage, as well as the lineal feet of road frontage of the property itself. And it'll dictate the individual sizes to either a wall sign or a pylon sign.
Members, anything else? Can you answer this? Have you done anything to compromise with your
Neighbor?
neighbor?
I mean, we've met with them several times. We did provide a CAD drawing of our site plan, I think, or maybe rendering, so they could take a look at it and consider the reorientation. But it does seem like at this point there is a bit of a standstill. Their position is, as stated in Mr. Knopf's letter from 3 p.m. today, they think it doesn't fit within the comprehensive plan. We disagree. This board also disagrees because part of your seeker recommendation was that it does fit within the comprehensive plan. Code enforcement officer has also said the project fits within the comprehensive plan. Their position is that we will increase traffic. The ITE 10th edition disagrees with that as well, saying that we actually decrease traffic by 11 trips. And then their other position is, I'm sure we disagree with it.
I think it's just
Oh, the rotation.
yeah.
Yeah. And as I mentioned to you, we oppose the rotation. We think it adds more site disturbance, creates a potential for variances and conflict with the neighboring apartments. And I think given that we're so black and white on the issue, we, despite our best efforts and hopeful that cooler heads have prevailed, there's nothing been like that yet. But, I mean, channels of dialogue are open nonetheless.
It seems to me that the major opposition is the bank. I agree, the existing building already blocks the view to the back, and this building is kind of in the same position, but the bank sticks out.
Kind of.
Have the bank lined up as a client,
Yes.
so they're all ready to go?
They're raring to go.
So they're raring to go. So there's, and
And I would, that bank building is not very
it's
tall.
hard, it's hard to envision it, but when you're dealing with cubes on a piece of paper, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I said this before, when you think about the comprehensive plan, if you have housing walkable to everything, the only thing that makes me nervous about this is people are gonna wanna walk out the back and walk across the parking lot tops, and cars go speeding through that parking lot.
Yeah, so when we first met with Mr. Ingracia and his attorney, the owner of the Tops Plaza, we mentioned we thought there actually was quite a bit of complement between bringing 14 residential units, some new kind of commercial, and then what he's planning in the future, which is to redevelop his site. And I guess the complement is people coming to the site, but there also is the negative possible impact of all the traffic. I don't know what the plans for his redevelopment looks like.
Right.
I suspect there'll be pedestrian improvements, and we'd certainly be open when the time comes to adding sort of hashing on the
Yeah.
blacktop for pedestrian crossing, signage to ask drivers to be cautious.
Yeah, because you don't know who your residents are, maybe that they get in a car and drive across the parking lot. Which I would if I was
Yeah.
a lot of groceries.
To each their own, yeah.
Uh-huh.
One thing I'd like to mention is the bank line it's Bank on Buffalo, they're ready to go. They're also the financier for the project, and they have disclosed to us that closure of the northern driveway makes the property unbankable from their perspective. So it would result in nothing being
But there's not
done.
any left turns out of the northern driveway.
They're okay with that.
Okay.
Will you put an island there or just a sign?
What's that?
Are you putting an island there or just a sign?
In the driveway, just a sign right now. Find those comments we've received from other boards in regards to those island medians is that it's not too long before they're taken out by snow plows and things of that nature when you have a curved median kind of in the middle of two curb cuts. If that is preferred, we can certainly install that. That's not an issue. Just to direct the exit.
Yeah,
for right turn
kind of
only.
make the left turn.
We can certainly, if
Go over the curb
the
if you
board,
want to.
if the board
Yeah.
wants that to
But
take place, I don't think that would be.
We still want people to be able to make a right turn. Okay, so you're saying one in the middle? between-
Yeah, it's basically, if this is transit, you
Yeah,
end up with an
yeah.
island that looks like this, so you're forcing the
Be
traffic.
kind of like an
We
L.
expanding it.
Like the bus garage.
The one like, it's similar to the one that we used to have,
Yeah.
Tim
Exactly what
Hortons.
it's done.
But that caused problems.
Right, and then we removed it. They came back, and asked, maybe the one at Tim Hortons right near,
Michael Anthony.
yeah, exactly, thank you.
Yeah, people were going over the island and
Yeah,
And they came back and said, okay,
they're good on
it was a
paper.
good, it was a good idea
It's
while
good
it lasted.
idea. That's what we.
yeah, I would hesitate.
Just put a couple bollards there, they won't drive over that.
Could do those.
Jersey barrier too, you know,
They come up right as soon as they...
couple bollards, so if damage your
Make
cardboard, they're
it a
gonna put bollards.
competition.
All right, well, I think we're still at a standstill here. I'm not ready to recommend anything here. How does the board members feel? I don't know if you were looking for approval tonight or not, but
If the board saw fit, but I understand.
I got that information at about 4:45 today. I didn't even finish reading it. And I don't know if the other members even know if they got it.
I got it at 3, so.
Yeah,
not too
so
far.
I think we need some time, so I would prefer to table again.
I would ask if I could get, apologies, just some clarity on the sequencing, because it sounded like from applicants that came before us that you would like the variances to be completed or granted before your recommendation. Is that true? Because I know sometimes it's different depending on the
It's always a
municipality.
tough question, but I would rather see it taken care of personally.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know if there's a legal,
If you.
You just need the neg deck, I think.
If you remember, this was brought back to us before we sent it to the town board, they want it clean. They want it,
It's the new policy.
everything is a go or a no-go, with nothing in between. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
but that doesn't mean we couldn't vote on it before the zoning board. It just means that the zoning board needs it cleaned when,
If the zoning
for the
board.
town board.
Should the zoning board say no, which they won't, but.
I'm not trying to upset my client or waste more time, but there is prudence to going to the zoning board first, because if they grant it with certain conditions, we may need to comply and therefore
Right.
modify the site plan that you're going to
Usually,
recommend.
everything else is zoning board first. And if you don't get all the variances you asked for, then you gotta change your plan.
And we'll be back here anyways.
yeah,
Be back here.
so it makes sense to
Okay,
the ZBA.
so we'll tackle that first and then be back.
I have a couple quick things.
Yeah, of course.
I'll try to make them quick. One was, I noticed I'm not saying the word correctly, not the profile, but the
concept elevation.
Elevation, that you had some beautiful looking signage for the storefronts, first floor, for your project. And I can understand why you would want to do that. But I could also understand why, now that visibility is concerned, that would just be sticking the knife in deeper to your neighbor.
Sure.
I'm wondering if maybe that could potentially irritate. So I guess that's really just an observation. But the second.
Do you want me to say something?
Go ahead.
So our neighbor has two signs already. He has a brand-new sign at the intersection here after the old one, I think, fell down in a storm, and it was non-conforming, but he was permitted to put a new one back up.
Yep.
And then a lollipop top sign at the lighted intersection.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel as if they need that sign there at that location anyways to let people know what's going on back there, because unless you already frequent that plaza for something else, it's not going to be obvious to you what the other establishments are that are there.
It's probably a good negotiation tactic, speaking frankly.
This is just my observation. That's all. That's the only reason I'm offering it. The second one was, I know that you would even presumably propose this to the neighbor when you were discussing how you could come to an agreement, and one was this idea, well, you know, kind of a brainstorm. What if we reoriented the building? And the two issues with that were there were two additional variances that were automatically kicked off. In that scenario, what is the proposed, is the idea that you would have flow coming from Transit Road, coming around the back of the building, and then?
You're talking about with the rotated buildings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask the question this way. I'm sorry I'm interrupting. Is it just the fact that you don't have enough east-west width on this parcel in order to orient the building correctly?
Yes.
We modeled it, and it's like, if we kept the aisle with a rotated building, as soon as they turn in, they have to peel down.
And it's
Oh, no, I admit that, you know, I mean, what I saw, one of the pictures here was kind of ugly because it's just kind of jammed in.
Yeah. And also with the building here, the parking, you know, you've got parking going this way, and then with the building here, you're gonna have parking going north and south. It doesn't flow very well from a traffic standpoint either. We would also lose parking spaces with that orientation because this is narrow, and so your parking is not, it doesn't really flow with what's existing here and here. It's because it's rotated, and it just, in my opinion, does not look good from a parking lot standpoint, a flow standpoint. It's not, it just doesn't work in my eyes.
And again, just still brainstorming. When you proposed potentially rotating this, they didn't come back and say, well, we could maybe renegotiate where our parcels are.
No,
Okay.
it was like 90 degrees or nothing.
You see what I'm saying? If the boundary was farther to the east.
Oh, are you talking about the property line?
We could buy this rectangle here until.
There was a mention of that, but it would not.
I think it's.
It would not eliminate any of the other problems. It might get rid of a variance here. We still need a variance for the setback to the north, and as the other issues we mentioned.
Yeah. The parking issues in the middle would remain the same. I think it would also, like I said earlier too, and I think this is what Anthony is saying as well, is there's good flow now because it's north-south orientation, which matches north-south of Transit Road. If we flipped it, you'd get another sea of asphalt of parking similar to what's going on in the rest of the Tops Plaza. And I think given the kind of rents we want to charge, the kind of look we want to feel for this mixed-use facility, fit.
Okay. All right, then, if there's nothing else, I will move to table this project to a future meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, Anderson's Frozen Custard.
Welcome to the conference.
Good evening. My name is Dave Sutton from Sutton Architecture. Here today again to propose some minor modifications to the current site plan and building at 4855 Main Street, also known as Anderson's Custards. Just to give a little bit of a reminder of the presentation that I made at a prior meeting, we're doing some minor interior remodeling to the building and introducing a drive-through. We're not changing the footprint of the building in any way. All the remodeling will be done solely interior, with the exception of relocating one exit door and introducing a drive-through window. As a result, the parking lot has been adjusted and to accommodate the drive-through, and there is no increase in the paved area. It's actually possibly a slight reduction into the impervious surfaces. So we're talking more about the flow and orientation of traffic that would come in and out of the property and the introduction of a drive-through window. This is all a result of recent changes in the industry and my client's interest in providing for a more diverse product and service to the community. As you might know, Anderson's has been here for quite a long time, and not only are they looking to introduce the drive-through, but they're also looking to refresh and refurbish the building. Last time I presented an exterior rendering of the building. I do have additional copies of that if you don't have them in your packet. And talking about whitewashing the brick and giving it a new look, doing a little bit of new signage, and relocating some of the outdoor seating areas to be more visible and more energized to the street. There were a couple of comments at the last meeting that I was able to adjust the site plan. A couple of the comments were that there was a couple trees that were a part of the original approval that have proved to have been removed or damaged for whatever reason. So we have noted to replace those in the exact location where they were originally approved. So those are indicated on the revised plans that you've received. Also, connectability from a pedestrian walkway to the property. And we talked about coming from Transit Road, and due to the grade changes, that would bring on some challenges. So we, at the meeting, talked about the best and most feasible approach would be to come off of Michael Anthony Way, introduce a sidewalk, which would allow anybody on Transit Road or from the neighboring properties to the, I'm going to call that the east, or west, rather? East. And we are allowed to come up to connect to that public sidewalk, and we feel that this is the best place to do that. It will cross over the drive-through. We have delineated that. We've got it set in such a place that we felt has minimal impact. It's right around the corner where somebody is driving, well aware of their surroundings and at a very, very low speed. We do not feel there will be a pedestrian vehicular conflict at that location. And that will directly let them into the small patio area and the entrance to enter the facility. Now, once again, the improvements to the building, other than purely cosmetic, are very minor interior improvements. We're doing a little bit of relocating things and looking for an approval today to get through the site plan approval process, but most importantly, see if we can get an approval or an assurance from this board so that the building inspector can work with us to also allow us to do the interior remodeling. One of the major reasons for that is because of weather conditions. Obviously, this is not peak season for Anderson Custards, and they would like to do at least the interior remodeling during the winter months, which are slowly disappearing on us. We'd like to see if we can have those done. So there was a couple of comments from the engineer regarding some grading, indicating that no grading was provided. My response to that is We're actually maintaining all of the existing grading as it is. The path of the catch basins are not to be relocated or adjusted. The actual pitch and paving of the surface area is not to be altered or adjusted in any way to impact the flow of the drainage which is currently on site. The other thing is there was a prior letter that talked about this access management onto Transit Road, and there was an indication that there was a need to talk with the property owner regarding his willingness to contribute or be a part of that. One thing I can tell you is there is no access on Transit Road from this property, and when he purchased this property in 1998, he actually has a cross-border agreement with the neighboring property as part of the purchase, which allows for vehicular ingress and egress. So I feel as though their policy and their easements that are in place are actually in compliance to the management or control access management onto Transit Road already. So they only have access off of Michael Anthony and then the shared agreement. Now, as of recent, in following up in the review with the building department and Matt Fazzone's research, he has also indicated that there is in fact a requirement for a parking concern or variance potential. And we do know that we are eliminating some parking. We're well aware of it, but we also are directly adjacent to a neighboring property which has an abundance of parking. And there is a provision of the code that allows for some shared parking agreements. And my client has an agreement with the neighboring property for that shared parking agreement, and we're willing to formalize that as a part of the approval process and really solve that problem and not require us to go for a variance for parking. We would hate to introduce or take away green space to add additional parking where there's an abundance of parking in adjacent properties. This property is currently in use. We know its parking concerns, its parking potential. It doesn't have any parking concerns. The agreement with the neighboring property has always benefited the business. We do know that a majority of the year it's not a parking concern at all, and when it is, it's good weather times. We don't have to worry about losing parking spaces to snow piles and stuff like that because of the nature of this business. In the summer months, to park in the adjacent parking and to find your way to the Anderson's Custard is actually desirable. So that being said, I mean, I would like to see if we can move on with the approval process today. And if you had any questions, I'd be more than welcome to answer anything you might have.
First thing, I don't think we've gone through seeker in this, and I do believe it's required.
It's unlisted?
Listed or I'm looking for my initial letter.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Lisa did say that seeker does need to be done, and it could occur at the next meeting.
Got a response letter from the lead agency, so it's gone out. I mean, everything's gone out.
Yeah, I think the process has been completed.
Yeah.
We just need to actually do the seeker. And we really can't do that right now. So let's continue the process right now of going through and discussing anything. Does anybody have any questions?
I always have questions. In the letter saying a new slope sidewalk will be built, the last sentence says, this proposed sidewalk will connect the front patio enclosed by a new guardrail to the existing sidewalk parallel to Michael Anthony Lane. I have questions when I have a door and you're coming out onto a patio that is enclosed by a guardrail, and then you got to get through the guardrail to use the sidewalk, is what I've heard.
Of course.
In the
So I mean, that's a literal interpretation. What we're trying to say that the patio is protected with the guardrail, but it has an opening which aligns with the sidewalk, which acts as the connecting element to.
I was wondering if there's a gate or something, because when you come out the door, you don't want people to not realize that traffic is flowing there. So you're gonna need a sign for them too.
Yeah, so the way we have the door orientated, it's obviously going to go open up and discourage people from going down the sidewalk, and usually they're going to go out to the patio unless they're intentionally going to the sidewalk and they know the crossover, because that's probably the way they came. If you want us to introduce a gate there,
Well,
we would be more than willing to do that.
I'm just throwing out some ideas, because when I go to the restaurant up on Central and you come in through their patio through the gate, sometimes I can't figure out how to get in there. But a gate might just be, a little electric gate might.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're doing patios that are corralled by a gate, it might be for an establishment that serves alcohol, and that is done to define boundaries for the SLA.
Right.
I don't think we need to worry about that here.
You don't, as long as there's some way that you've thought about the pedestrian traffic and you've given it a hard look.
Yeah, so what we do is we identify a defined location established with the sidewalk, and that automatically brings to people's attention that it's not an open-ended thing, it's a defined, point of access, and people are more aware of their surroundings when that happens, rather than if it wasn't defined by a guardrail at all, we'd be more concerned about making sure that, patrons would be not realizing when they're on the patio and obviously going to the parking lot.
So fencing, guardrail, something.
A guardrail for sure. If the board is interested in us introducing a gate, once again, I'm not sure it's necessary, I'd be more than willing to introduce it.
I think you need to think about that and you make up your own idea.
Okay.
Make up your own mind, because unless they have other things to think about, I just wanted to make sure that people don't come out that door, have been like me, having a good time, and have totally lost my mind, and then walking out the door and wham, I get hit by a car.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sugar buzz?
Sugar buzz.
So I think if the gate's going to make it safer, then we should do it.
Once again, if that's the recommendation, no problem at all. We would definitely introduce that at that location.
I mean, it might be redundant, but, again, we want it to be as safe as possible, right?
Of course.
So I think we should go for it.
Are we talking about the southwest corner, or you're talking on, it's, because your proposed patio is on the northeast corner, right?
There's a proposed narrow patio across the front, and then it's actually over here, so we are trying to define the parameters of the patio. My only thought about the gate is when you're coming up over here and you're walking, I don't want somebody kind of fuddling with that gate, standing in that drive aisle. So I would personally think that the gate would be more of a hindrance there, but maybe we can come up with a device where it's a push device and it's an easy entrance.
I mean, you're gonna have yellow striping or something across the asphalt. So maybe it's just a visual sign to say,
Watch
for
your step.
traffic, or
Watch your step, watch for traffic.
caution, slow down,
Yep.
like we
I don't
have
think you
here
need
in the
a
village.
gate.
Yep. Yeah, I think that, we would identify it obviously with striping, signage, and maybe even coming through here, I might suggest, and I don't know it's necessary because it's not a traffic calming area, but maybe like a speed hump or a speed bump to identify. But typically the best way to do it is give a visual contrast in color, contrast in maybe material, where that defined walkway is, showing it's taking precedence.
Accessible ramp, or is that just a curb with a step down?
This is there'll be a depression there, and it will need to be ADA compliant, for sure.
So it's gonna have the textures there too.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
there's another visual for you.
Yeah, and I think we'll do everything necessary, and obviously, this board, we always appreciate your input, but I think insurance companies and my client, knowing the safety and the nature of his business, we will be signing it properly and addressing it properly.
Will do.
Yeah.
I couldn't even understand if there's an opening the way your words were.
Yeah, it says enclosure, but I'm saying defined parameters, not totally enclosed. It's going to be open-ended
With an
over
opening.
here, and it will have that
So you
open.
can walk across the sidewalk go in and get your ice cream, come back out, walk all the way around to the other patio or be on this little front.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we've created a little bit of a patio
Yeah.
here in the front. I want to use that small patio, even though it's narrow, but it has a couple of bistro tables there. It's meant to liven up the street and really bring life to passerbys and energize the building. We feel it's a key component. So it's not the big or main patio area, but I think it's a really nice complement to the streetscape and the visual impact that we're trying to create, rebranding the Anderson's location.
Anything else? Ed?
I just have a question. The building behind you, the
The
animal.
medical office?
Yeah, it's a medical office. There's a driveway connecting between you and them.
Correct.
So I assume you have cross-access agreement there?
There is an agreement too that gives rights to the neighboring properties.
For both of you?
Yep.
Okay. And the distance from basically your I guess that's your property, or no, from the back of the parking to the east side there?
This one? Sorry.
On the east side, your parking, what's the distance between the parking and the property line?
You mean this green space right
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
I would say if that's a 19-foot parking space, we're probably 20 to 25 feet, approximately.
Okay. Then they've got at least that on their side before they get to their pavement. So there's about, looking at this, there's probably about a 50-foot wide grass strip that runs between your property. Okay.
Yeah, and once again, you know, when we were noted that there was a parking shortage based on some of the improvements we're doing here and the demand, we don't feel like we need to add any parking spaces, take away green space. We feel that the cross-border agreement with the surplus of parking, as everyone knows, the space to the north here has ample parking, and I don't think we need to introduce more and take away green space in any location of our site.
Ed? Anything else? Okay.
With respect to the parking, we'll look at the counts and we'll do the cumulative effects.
Right.
We'll get the documentation drafted, we'll have it to the attorney's office for review, so it can be filed as a part of the document and be ready for the next board meeting. And I'm going to clarify this, and I'm just going to be open and honest about that. This is not a minor adjustment to anything. This is a site plan amendment to an existing facility. We're doing interior renovations to the building. There are level 2 alteration in some portions, level 1 in other portions. I did request interior seating, interior floor plans on December 7th, and I got them on February 23rd. And I felt consistent pressure by the business owner to issue something to get him in the ground so that he can open during a season date when this process started in late November. And to the lack of the information provided to this board to make a recommendation is the reason that the process is being delayed. Okay, and I'm going to reiterate again, when the information is here, we're able to make a recommendation that's going to satisfy both the town and the business that's going to use the property in the future. So I'm going to caution again, the information that's requested tonight for this planning board to make a recommendation, I would urge you, please deliver it in a timely fashion so they can review it, make sure that all the items are satisfied, and they give you a clean recommendation so the town board to approve the project and the building department can issue a building.
Thank you. Dave, any questions?
My concern, or at least I know some people on the board, we've talked about, with the addition to the drive-through, for example, I live in North Lancaster. If I was going to come through here and if my ice cream would go through the drive-through, I'm going to leave it out, instead of going back through the Kohl's parking lot or whatever to the north, I'm going to make it right out into Michael Anthony, come out with Michael Anthony. We've already had some issues with Michael Anthony people upset with the traffic on Transit Road. So you may get some letters back to you guys.
We've already gotten, yeah. I understand Councilman Leary is requesting a traffic study. That was the word I got. I don't know.
That was my meeting today with the DOT. I haven't reported back yet to the board. The meeting with DOT was about transit road access.
Okay.
What they'll do, what they can do, what they can't do, how long it will take.
I think there's a lot of interest in
what
transit
other
road south of Williams, well, south of Como Park, really.
For all intents and purposes, this project does not contribute or diminish any issues on transit road perception is there.
No.
That the drive-through is going to bring traffic and increase.
Yeah, there's.
They've already got an entrance on the Michael, Anthony.
Yeah.
There's no change to this.
I'm sorry.
At all the design standards of the zoning code,
I want to hear.
I do not believe that the project itself is a contributing factor to a traffic discussion.
I agree.
Yeah. And
Michael Anthony is a public street.
Yeah, in fact, and I thank you for that comment, because I guess, just to reiterate, I think that we're doing this because of a change in business model over the last couple of years, and it's the new trend. We're not looking to add more clients. We're looking to better serve the ones that are already coming here, and this is what the new trends are. We don't anticipate any increase in traffic as a result of a drive-through. Unfortunately, a drive-through has a little bit of negativity associated with it because everybody associates it with possibly a Tim Hortons or something that's high volume. This is just meant to serve the existing customers in a better fashion and more in keeping with what today's requests are by the patron. So
It's curbside pickup. You're not going to have to get out of your car.
it is, right.
It's more convenient for everybody. Everybody's already familiar with this, especially after the pandemic. People have been using drive-throughs, I think, more now than they were before. So, and that's as true for the residents who are living on Michael Anthony as it is for any of the potential patrons who might be coming from other areas. So, to me, it seems like a non-argument.
I think we're sympathetic to their problem, to their issues there, but I don't know if this is impactful.
Parking on ice cream anyways.
Pardon me?
I prefer to parking on ice cream anyways.
As do I.
It's hard to drive by.
Now,
Jake's
the walk takes the calories out of it. Never mind.
Anything else? Well, I would say we could set the seeker for the March 16th meeting. And if that goes well, then we could go right to site plan approval or disapproval, whatever it is, our recommendation. But we can't make a recommendation before seeker.
Okay, if I can ask formal request to this board, I was asked to deliver 7 additional copies to the attorney's office of what we had already submitted. And I got that email yesterday, so I'd like to formally do that. And I'm not aware of, at this time, I'm not aware of any outstanding request for information for this project from this board or the building department. I will check with Matt on that as a follow-up, but is there anything that I need to provide in terms of additional information to this board to help them render a decision?
No. That's the only thing that came out of tonight's review.
My only note is traffic.
Traffic?
Talking about the cross agreement?
Parking.
Oh, the parking agreement.
Right. If you choose not to go for the variance, you're going to implore a cross agreement between the adjoining parcels. That documentation, I believe, really needs to be reviewed by the attorney's office for filing.
Yeah, and we are actually putting that document together, okay, and we will do that. And, and once again, and we've been working with Matt, and I do respect his position. And what we would like to do is obviously move forward with the project. I would love to, as our original meeting was, to possibly separate the two and do some interior remodeling to the project. I know that you had said that the trigger was the drive-through window. We're willing to do the interior remodeling at this time, go through the permit approval process, and either forego the installation of the drive-through window and/or put it in with the understanding that we can't use it or do any exterior work until this board is done. Because if the interior work can be done now, that could be a great asset to trying to keep this business going and during, obviously, these times and construction. So if Matt, if you would be willing to...
It's not Matt's decision, it's the town code that requires it. And I reiterated that, I've stated that, I've mentioned it to this board, the town boards, and any applicant that comes in, that the information has to be provided for this board to give a review. And, you know, to have that information delayed for that amount of time, and then ask the town to throw away its requirements for the sake of saving a time or saving a season, I don't think that's my decision to make, but either a town board, a town attorney's office, or the town zoning board of appeals. It's clearly written in the code, the permit must be issued after the site plan. It's not a bad decision, it's not.
And this planning board has no authority to expedite anything either.
It's critical, this process has been established to benefit both the town, the residents, and the business owners. Take advantage of the zoning requirements and have a viable project so it can move forward. And ask the town to throw its requirements aside.
No, and I guess-
It's right for anybody, to be honest with you.
So it sounds like-
It is where it is. It's not a Matt decision. It has been made a Matt decision, and I'm going to take myself out of it.
So it sounds like at this point, if you were looking for relief in that regard or to split this up, you would need to address the zoning board, right? Is that what you're saying?
Town board. You know, like I said, I'm going to rely on what the code requires. You know, we've done handshake agreements. I'm going to give you this, we're going to do that, we're going to go this path, and I just can't manage all of the properties all at once. It's impossible, and we get bad product, we get bad projects, and the businesses will suffer in the end, and we're just not willing to participate in that.
So going forward, I think we'll move to table this and have the seeker on March 16th, and if all goes well, we would do the site plan process right after,
As long as
assuming that that everything has been,
Agreement documentation.
that the other things have been taken care of, and that the seeker gets a negative declaration. Okay, so I will so move at this time. Can I have a second?
Second.
Was that Stan?
Yep.
I'm taking minutes too, so.
Glad somebody.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Okay, unless anybody has any earth-shaking news, I'm going to move. Do you have
What
something?
about a secretary?
Yeah, what
You
do
can't
Any secretary
take
news?
minutes and chairing the meetings. What's going on with that, Dave?
Dave, why don't you take minutes from now?
I thought we were live streaming. If that's a recording device too, then you can do 2 hours again and listen to it and,
Yeah.
yeah, dictation.
I will bring it up at the town board meeting.
Who has the appointment, though? I don't understand what could be a problem here.
Get somebody to work for the money and come in 2 nights to it, and then,
You can't get people to work at Charter if you don't want to. They don't want to work here, so, I mean, we can, I will say something at the town board meeting. And we definitely need it.
Absolutely.
I have heard of a couple people that are interested, so we'll see if anything comes of it. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, I'm going to move to adjourn. Second?
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
It was productive, but it was long. We only proved one thing.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, and that was here from,
Yeah, we can't even go, I'm not going there anymore.
that was here from September.
Not after meetings.
But this one?
No, the other.
They're going to close it.
Soil.
Screw them.
Oh, the soil. That was last, that was a long time ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to say happy birthday. You know, They should give it. I had this thing in my head, oh, March 1st. My cousin Mark, his birthday, he's the same age as me, his birthday's March 1st. And Chris Yule, Jim Yule's wife is, her birthday's March 1st. And I forgot, you and Aaron are both. Happy birthday, sorry about that.
I'll tell you what, Danny was there.
Yeah, I gotta turn off the, this is up.
Alrighty.
I was hearing somebody talking. It must have been a process that time delay. It must have been somebody.